Jake Carter dragged himself up the steep alien path, cursing under his breath. His boots were covered in red dust, his shirt clung to him in sticky patches, and he was pretty sure he hadn't blinked in 10 minutes because his eyeballs felt like sandpaper. "Great idea, Jake," he muttered. "Uncharted planet. No backup. No map. Just pure explorer instincts. Look how well that turned out." His rugged Earth survival skills had so far led him to dehydration, starvation, and an incident with an alien lizard that had left him limping for the past 2 hours. His grand plan was simple: find civilization before his body quit on him. Or, barring that, a stream. Or a bar. Whichever came first. And then he saw her. She stood on the path ahead like some ethereal mirage. 8 feet tall, dark blue skin, glowing silver eyes that tracked him like he was prey. Long, sleek muscles wrapped in fitted battle leathers, a short blade strapped to her thigh. Her face was unreadable, but something about the way she tilted her head screamed amusement. Jake wiped the sweat from his forehead, shoved his exhaustion aside, and turned on his most charming, "I totally know what I am doing" smile. "Well, hello there." She didn't react. Just studied him like a scientist examines a bug. Jake cleared his throat. Do you speak?" "You are untrained," she said suddenly, her voice smooth but edged in something sharp. Jake blinked. "Excuse me?" "You are untested," she clarified, stepping forward with a slow, deliberate motion. "Weak." Jake laughed because, well, what the hell else was he supposed to do? A stunning alien woman had just looked him up and down like an old sandwich and deemed him unworthy. "Listen, sweetheart, I think you're misreading the situation." He squared his shoulders, ignoring the way his knees wobbled slightly. "I might be a little travel-worn, but I'm actually in excellent shape. Peak performance, really. Stamina for days." Her silver eyes flicked down, scanning him in a way that made his brain short-circuit and his ego swell. "I do not see it," she said flatly. Jake nearly choked. You don't see it? You struggle up the path," she continued, completely oblivious to his growing indignation. "Your breath is uneven. Your footing is clumsy." Jake stared at her, mouth opening and closing. Was this woman negging him? On a desolate alien mountain? He exhaled slowly. "All right. Let's start over. I'm Jake. And you are?" A beat of silence. Then, Ziwyana. He grinned. "Beautiful name. Matches the face." She said nothing. Jake shifted slightly. "Sue, what are you doing out here? Waiting for someone?" "I am the guardian of the path." He perked up. "A guide, then? Perfect. You can take me to the nearest city, get me some food, maybe a drink." "No." His grin wavered. "No?" Ziwyana sighed, like she was explaining something incredibly simple to a very dense child. "Only those who prove their strength may pass." Jake blinked. Oh, I see how this works." He smirked, running a hand through his messy hair. "You've got a little warrior culture thing going on. Trials of strength, feats of endurance." "Yes." Jake's grin widened. "Well, sweetheart, you're in luck. I'm very good at endurance trials." Ziwyana just stared at him. Slowly, she turned, pointed up the mountain, and in the same calm, measured tone said, "Kill that." Jake followed her finger. And saw the massive, four-armed, fawn-covered alien beast climbing down the rock face toward them. His entire body locked up. His brain screamed, "What?" Ziwyana tilted her head. "Do you need a weapon?" Jake's mouth opened. Closed. Then, "Yeah, I think that might help." She pulled a tiny dagger from her belt and tossed it to him. Jake stared at the comically small blade in his palm. Then up at the 20-foot killing machine barreling toward him. Then back at Ziwyana, who was waiting expectantly. Jake swallowed. "So, quick question." Ziwyana raised an eyebrow. "Do I get extra points for enthusiasm?" Jake sprinted to the left, dagger clenched tight, fully aware that his current battle strategy was run first, think later. The alien beast roared, saliva dripping from its gaping maw as it lunged. He dove sideways just in time, barely avoiding a set of claws the size of his damn head. "All right, big guy, let's, sh*t. He barely had time to duck as a second swing sent a rock shattering where his skull had been a second ago. Ziwyana watched, arms crossed. "You are slower than I expected." Jake stumbled, panting. "Oh, I'm sorry, did you want a show? I usually charge extra." The beast growled, eyes locked on him now. Its forearms flexed, muscles rippling like it was just getting started. Jake gritted his teeth. "All right, focus." He had exactly one weapon, a glorified kitchen knife, and a body that was currently betraying him in every way possible. "All right, new plan," he muttered. "I distract, you stab?" Ziwyana raised an eyebrow. "It is your trial, human." Jake cursed under his breath. Why did he always get himself into this kind of SHT? He dodged another attack, barely managing to stay on his feet. The beast lunged again. He jumped backward, lost his footing, and... "Oh, come on!" He landed flat on his ass. The beast reared back, roaring in victory. Jake's eyes widened. "Oh, hell no!" Panic kicked in, pure survival instincts. He hurled the tiny dagger without aiming, a complete desperation move. And somehow, the dagger spun midair, hit the beast's open mouth, lodged deep in its throat. And the monster dropped like a sack of alien potatoes. Jake froze. Ziwyana blinked. The beast lay still, a low, rattling exhale the only sound. Jake sat there, chest heaving. "Holy sh*t," he whispered. "Did I just..." Ziwyana tilted her head. Lucky strike." Jake sputtered. "Lucky? That was..." He waved vaguely at the very dead, very giant thing beside him. "That was pure skill." Ziwyana walked over and nudged the corpse with her boot. The beast did not move. She glanced at Jake. "Perhaps you are not completely useless." Jake grinned. "I'll take it." He pushed himself up, legs shaking like jelly. "So, I'm assuming I pass?" Ziwyana studied him. "You survived. That is, acceptable." Jake wiped sweat from his forehead. "Great. Fantastic. So let's get to that part where you, I don't know, take me back to your place, get me something to eat, maybe. You will need preparation." Jake blinked. "For what?" Ziwyana turned, motioning for him to follow. "The next step." Jake perked up. Oh, I see what's happening." He smirked, falling in step beside her. "We're moving on to the real trial, huh?" Ziwyana glanced at him. "Yes." Jake's smirk deepened. "I get it. First, I proved myself in battle, and now I have to show my other strengths." Ziwyana arched an eyebrow. "Other strengths?" Jake wagged his eyebrows. "I think you know what I mean." Ziwyana kept walking. "I do not." "Oh, come on." Jake chuckled. "The warrior bonding thing? The endurance trial? It's obvious. You're into me." Ziwyana's expression did not change. "We must cleanse you first." Jake stumbled. "Wait, what?" Ziwyana stopped at the edge of a small, steaming pool of water. She gestured. "Undress." Jake's brain short-circuited. He stared at her. Then at the water. Then back at her. "Wow. You don't waste time, huh?" Ziwyana frowned. "You are covered in filth." Jake smirked. "I mean, if you wanted to get me naked, all you had to do was ask." Ziwyana rolled her eyes. "You stink of fear." Jake's smirk vanished. "Okay, ouch." Ziwyana crossed her arms. "Do you intend to argue, or will you cleanse yourself?" Jake hesitated. On one hand, bathing in alien water might be a terrible idea. On the other hand, he was disgusting, and there was an attractive warrior woman standing in front of him. He sighed. "Fine." He peeled off his shirt, tossing it aside. He glanced at Ziwyana, waiting for some kind of reaction. She didn't even blink. Jake cleared his throat. Usually this is where someone says something like, "Wow, human males are so impressive." Ziwyana didn't even glance at him. "Why would I lie?" Jake gaped. "All right. You know what? I take it back. That monster was less savage than you." Ziwyana just motioned to the water. Jake sighed and stepped in. The heat hit immediately, a sharp contrast to the mountain air. He groaned. "Oh, hell yes." Ziwyana watched as he sank deeper, muscles relaxing. Jake cracked an eye open. "You just gonna stand there, or are you getting in too?" Ziwyana snorted. "You are not ready for that, human." Jake grinned. "Oh, sweetheart, you'd be surprised." Jake stretched, letting the heat soak into his muscles. "All right, I'll admit, this was a good idea. Nothing like a hot soak after a long, hard trial." He smirked. "Speaking of trials, when exactly does the next one start?" Ziwyana tossed him a rough, cloth-like material. "Dry yourself. The ceremony begins soon." Jake blinked. "Ceremony?" Ziwyana nodded. "You proved yourself in battle. Now you must demonstrate endurance." Jake grinned. "Finally, some appreciation for my best skill." Ziwyana gave him a blank look. "You will last as long as you can. Few make it past the first round." Jake ran a hand through his wet hair. "Sweetheart, I don't just last, I excel." Ziwyana tilted her head slightly. "We will see." 15 minutes later, Jake stood in the middle of what he could only describe as an alien fight club. A massive crowd surrounded him, towering figures watching with interest. The air buzzed with anticipation. Jake glanced at Ziwyana. Not to sound ungrateful, but I was expecting something a little more intimate." Ziwyana handed him a massive war hammer. Jake stared. She nodded toward the circle. "You will prove your stamina." Jake slowly turned his head to see two alien warriors the size of trucks stepping forward. Each one cracked their knuckles. Jake looked at Ziwyana. "Okay. Quick clarification. When you say stamina, you mean?" Ziwyana gestured toward the giants. "You will battle until you can no longer stand." Jake stared. "Right. Okay. So, a different kind of endurance trial." Ziwyana raised an eyebrow. "What other kind is there?" Jake opened his mouth. Closed it. Exhaled. "Never mind." The first warrior lunged. Jake yelled and barely dodged as a fist the size of his torso smashed the ground. "All right, we're doing this. We're actually doing this." The second warrior swung. Jake ducked, then swung his war hammer with everything he had. It barely made a dent. Jake's arms screamed in protest. His muscles felt like wet noodles. The crowd laughed. Ziwyana watched with an unreadable expression. "You are struggling." Jake gritted his teeth. No, I'm just warming up." The first warrior charged again. Jake had exactly one option. He pretended to trip. Fell sideways. Rolled between their legs. And accidentally swung his hammer upward. The warrior crumpled instantly. The crowd went silent. Ziwyana tilted her head. "Interesting technique." Jake lay on the ground, panting. "Why, yeah. I call it, he groaned, pushing himself up. "The human counterattack." The second warrior hesitated. Jake grinned weakly. "That's right, big guy. I may look untrained, but you just witnessed some advanced Earth combat strategy." The warrior lunged. Jake, on pure instinct, yanked the hammer up, slamming it straight between his opponent's legs. A deep, guttural wheeze filled the arena. The warrior fell over, eyes rolling back. The crowd exploded into cheers. Ziwyana blinked. "Huh!" Jake, dazed and gasping for air, somehow managed to stand. "So, did I pass?" Ziwyana studied him. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Yes." Jake grinned. "Great. Now, about that reward." Ziwyana's lips quirked. "You will be claimed tonight." Jake froze. "Claimed?" Ziwyana gestured for him to follow. Jake hesitated. then followed her into the unknown. Jake followed Ziwyana through the winding stone corridors, his legs barely holding him up after that so-called endurance trial. His brain was running on fumes, but one thing still burned bright in his mind. Claimed, he muttered. Now see where I come from, that word has a very specific meaning. Ziwyana didn't look back. It means what it means. Jake exhaled. You're really not helping. They stepped into a massive chamber, lit by a soft, glowing blue light. The air was thick with something heady, intoxicating. Ziwyana finally turned, her silver eyes locked onto him. You survived. You fought. You endured. Jake smirked. That last part's kinda my specialty. Ziwyana ignored him. You will receive what is owed. Jake opened his mouth to make another suggestive remark, then froze. Because he wasn't alone. Several tall, fierce-looking alien women stood at the edges of the chamber. Each one was watching him like he was a fresh meal. Jake swallowed. What's with the audience? Ziwyana's lips barely curled. They are here to witness the bonding. Jake's brain short-circuited. The bonding? Ziwyana stepped closer. You fought well. Your strength was proven. And now you will receive your mark. Jake was pretty sure his soul left his body. Okay. Now, before we get into any ceremonial branding, because I feel like that's where this is going, can we just clarify what kind of mark we're talking about? Ziwyana tilted her head. You will be bound to our order. Jake blinked. Oh. That's actually kinda cool. Ziwyana's fingers brushed his chest. The process is intense. Jake's brain rebooted. Define intense. Ziwyana's grip tightened. You will endure. Jake swallowed. Okay, see, there it is again. You keep saying that word, and I keep having very specific interpretations. The watching warriors chuckled. Ziwyana pulled a small, glowing dagger from her side. Jake flinched. Whoa, what's that for? Ziwyana dragged the blade lightly over her palm. A soft blue light flickered. The bonding. Jake stared. She held up her hand. The light grew. You will take my mark, she said simply. And I will take yours. Jake let out a slow breath. Okay. So this is not a blood ritual where I lose a vital organ? Ziwyana frowned. Why would I need your organs? Jake exhaled. You know what? Let's just do this before I start overthinking it. Ziwyana stepped closer. The moment her glowing hand pressed against his chest, heat flooded through him. Jake stiffened. Whoa! The sensation burned, but not painfully. It thrummed through his skin, sinking deep into his bones. When she pulled back, a faint glowing mark was left behind, just over his heart. Jake stared at it. Well, he finally said. That was something. Ziwyana's lips quirked. It is done. Jake looked up. So, does this come with any cool warrior perks? Do I get a sword? A title? Ziwyana tilted her head. You are mine. Jake choked. I'm sorry, what? Ziwyana smirked. You belong to me now. Jake blinked. So when you said claimed earlier? Ziwyana nodded. Yes. Jake ran a hand down his face. You know what? I'm too tired to fight this. Sure. Let's go with it. Ziwyana stepped forward. You have done well, human. Jake smirked. Oh, sweetheart. You haven't seen anything yet. The doors shut. The watching warriors laughed. Jake realized. This was just the beginning.